All information contained in this podcast is general in nature and does not consider your individual circumstances. You should consider the appropriateness of this information with regards to your individual objectives, financial situation, and needs. Thanks for joining us on Sharing More Than the Sheets. Please make sure you subscribe to be updated on your future episode better financial and
feel free to
share this episode so that you can both focus on the things that you might benefit. I'm your host.
Please visit us at sharingmorethanthesheets.com.au to submit questions or requests
for future podcast topics. These podcasts have been brought to you by Better Financial Planning Australia. To book a 15-minute phone chat is called Michael's Magic Moment. It's my opportunity to play a little snippet from one of our previous episodes, which resonated with our listeners, that I received feedback from, or I felt really had an impact on some people's lives. Hope you enjoy. On this episode of Michael's Magic Moment, I go back to one of my favorite episodes titled The Gecko and the Moth. Now, the episode itself is as intriguing as the name, and I essentially share a little bit of my experience as a Queenslander growing up, and the experience that any Queenslander would have with geckos, or most Queenslanders anyway. And I bring up a very important point about in life, the things that we should be focusing on. And I talk about how as partners, as mums and dads, and even if you're single, as a person that's working every day, you're trying to achieve something, whether it's for you, whether it's for someone else. And it's very easy for us to lose sight of what the end goal is, because sometimes we can get just so caught up with work, with our own pride, with the small details, and we fail to just step back and look at the overall picture. Now, as a financial advisor, I talk to my clients about these things regularly because we talk about money, and with money, it's the same thing. It's important to step back and look at what's actually going on. But it's also really important to do that with your goals and to work out why you're working. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Why are you in that job? Why do you have that business? And to have a why. And to essentially have clear sight of what you're trying to do. Because when you have that clear sight, your planning becomes a lot easier. I talked about it in last week's episode with budgeting as to why you need a budget. But when you have this in place, it makes it so much easier to achieve your goals. So this episode, again, it's one of my favorite ones just because I had a bit of fun with it, and it's a concept, I guess, I'm sure someone else has come up with it before, but I thought of it myself, and it's just something that really inspired me to record an episode on it, because I could relate to it personally, because I always need to remind myself of what my goal is and why I'm doing what I'm doing. But at the same time, I see it regularly with people, and when I talk to someone that has succeeded, whether it's financially or personally, and they're a successful person in their workplace or in their business or in their industry, or even for them personally, the common thing I see regularly is that person had a goal. They had something they were trying to do. They didn't lose sight of the end goal, and they just worked towards it. So I hope you enjoy the episode. I can talk about this for hours, but we'll just go straight back to the little clipping from that episode. I encourage you to go back and listen to the whole thing, to be honest with you. And please touch base. Let me know what you think, because I had plenty of people contacting me after the last episode that I recorded on this topic. But please enjoy, have a good think about it, and just try to think about how this can relate to your life, and if there's something that you can take out of it, or if you know someone else that can learn from it. The other night I was brushing my teeth, and just like any other night of brushing my teeth here in Queensland, when it's night time and the light is on in the bathroom, on our window we normally see geckos. So if you live in Queensland, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't, I'll give you an idea. Geckos in Queensland seem to exist everywhere. And one of the joys I remember even as a child is at night time looking at the window and seeing the geckos literally crawling on the window doing what they can to eat the first moth that they see. Yes, smashing through a moth like it's a hamburger. As a child, it was one of the most satisfying feelings, and I'm not going to lie, as an adult, it's just as satisfying and it doesn't change, especially when there's a couple there and you can see them both competing for the same moth. But something happened the other night, which personally I was amazed by, and I'm sure there's maybe a scientific reason for it, but let's just bring things down to our levels as humans. And I saw a scenario that I want to relate, that I feel relates to our lives. So I saw this gecko focusing on a moth, and it was slowly creeping up to this moth really carefully. I've never seen a gecko focus so much on anything in my life. It was literally walking up to this moth really slowly, ready to eat it. And right next to it landed a bigger moth. Literally, I would say it's at least 3 times the size of the moth that this gecko was focusing on. And what I noticed, is this gecko just kept crawling up closer to the smaller moth, completely ignoring or not realizing that there was a bigger moth right next to it. It took a couple of grabs at the small moth realized what was happening, flies away to another section of the window, and the gecko kept focusing towards the small one. And it just got me thinking, as adults, as everyday people, do we sometimes find ourselves focusing on the wrong thing in life? And Leroy Hood, an American biologist, said if you focus on the smallest details, you'll never get the big picture right. And at the end of the day, you can't do big things if you're distracted by the small ones. Personally, as a financial advisor, I see many people in their lives working towards goals, and I find them focusing on the wrong part of their goals or the wrong part of their lives, and things just aren't working and they can't really figure out what it is. And all I can say today is I'm not a motivational speaker, but let's just bring in some motivational music, please. You need to focus on what's important to you in life. You need to focus on the big picture and you need to ask yourself 3 questions when you're trying to achieve anything. The first thing is, why are things occurring as they are? In our lives, sometimes things will push us back. Sometimes things will come up in our faces. And instead of just playing the victim and letting it get to you, you need to really think, why is this actually happening? Is there a behavior that is causing this to occur? Is there a scenario that you're putting yourself into that's causing this event to occur? And secondly, you need to ask yourself, what's actually important? What are the most important things in life? And what are the things that really should be focused on to make sure that the big picture is the focus and not the small one? Because the problem is, when people are focusing on the small things in life, the things that are literally just there, they forget about the big things that they're really supposed to be working towards. The other thing about it as well is, how do these small pieces fit into the grand scheme of things? And the biggest thing that people realize is when they're that they don't realize is when they are, in a way, working towards a goal or working towards achieving something in particular, they get too obsessed with that. And they just forget why they're there in the first place or what the overall goal is. And an example that I'll give you is somebody that's working for their family. Now, at the end of the day, why are they working? For their family. Yet, they put themselves in a position where they work so hard they don't see the family. And when they do see the family, they're not really with the family. And I recorded an episode with Dr. Adam Fraser, December last year, on his book, The Third Space, and I'd highly recommend that you listen to it. But many times, and I'm a victim of this, I'm definitely not alien to this situation, but sometimes people are with their families, but they're not with their families. Their mind is somewhere else. Their mind is in their work, or something that an email they need to send later on that night, or something that happened that day. And at the end of the day, they focus on these small factors, or they focus on tasks that should have been done, but they forget what the big picture is, that they're working for their family. Thanks for joining us on Sharing More Than the Sheets. Please make sure you subscribe to be updated with future episode releases, and feel free to share this episode with any friends or family that you think it might benefit. Please visit us at sharingmorethanthesheets.com.au to submit questions or requests for future podcast topics. These podcasts have been brought to you by Better Financial Planning Australia. To book a 15-minute phone chat, visit betterfinancialplanning.com.au.